Good day, folks. Everything new under the sun. It is November 16th, 2024. And originally, back in the early few days of 2024, I believe that war was coming. And I think we've seen a significant kick up, that's for sure. Ukraine, Russia. But I think prophetically, I think the prophetic war is going to be in the Middle East. It's going to involve Israel. It's going to involve Jerusalem, and I think that's still coming. So we'll continue to watch and see what's going to happen there. One of the things that we're still watching for is a couple of prophetic wars and battles, and those being Psalm 83, the inner circle of nations, and they seem to be clearing out the inner circle of nations right now, Gaza, Lebanon, and then they take on an outer circle of nations in the Psalm 83 war. And then we have this destruction of Damascus, where Damascus becomes a ruinous heap. This is a yet future prophecy because Damascus is one of the longest continuously inhabited cities in the world, and so prophetically the Bible says Damascus will be a ruinous heap and no one's going to live there anymore except a bunch of animals. And so that's again yet future, and I think that becomes part and parcel, and I think in fact that ends up being, to me, to my understanding, to what I believe, I think that's the hook in the jaw that brings Gog from the land of Magog and the other groups down with into Israel and to fulfill Ezekiel 38. And then that kicks off, that brings worldwide economic collapse, and that kicks off potentially the 7-year period. And then I think the rapture then is at the midpoint of that 7-year period, where the abomination of desolation happens. That's kind of my understanding of the timeline of the return of the Lord. And as I've always said, I don't know. I don't know exactly how things are going to fall out. I'm looking at the prophetic wars and what hasn't been fulfilled yet, according to those who understand, scholars, and looking at history, and about the things coming, the mark of the beast system, the Antichrist, the false prophet, and these are what my videos are built off. This kind of general understanding of what are the components that are yet to be fulfilled. So with that, with taking a look at that, I'm going to have to shift this into 2025, it looks like at this point. But the next 4 years of Trump are, again, an interesting thing to look at prophetically. And again, I don't know. But we look at these things, we try and line them up with Bible prophecy, and we wait. We wait to see if they are fulfilling. And certainly, I think, in terms of a Middle East war, the Biden administration, they would be pushing Ukraine and Russia. But when Trump comes into power, he's probably going to deal with the Ukraine, Russia, and Taiwan, China, and make some sort of peace, land for peace, whatever it may be. But I think the chance of war between Israel and Iran increases, which then becomes that hook in the jaw, that the focus on the Middle East again during his 4 years, during his tenure. So I think that's interesting from the Bible prophecy point of view. So we're going to take a look at that. Now, I'll say this, Canadian Prepper is coming out and speaking about the Iranian, top secret Iranian research facility, which happened in Iran when Israel did its last strike. What was it, October 25th or whenever that strike happened? And he came out, and I'll call him on this, he came out and said, you know what, Israel flew a bunch of aircraft into Iran, and it doesn't look like they did anything. They didn't take out any particular thing. They didn't, Israel came out and said they took out a bunch of missile manufacturing facilities. But he said, Israel, who has supposedly one of the strongest militaries, strongest aircraft and air militaries in the world in terms of air combat and their ability to project strength with their air force, one of the most technologically advanced air forces in the world, that they didn't do much during that strike. And he was making fun of them and saying, is Israel really that strong after all? And I think that was short-sighted. And now he is coming back and reporting the same news that I'm going to take a look at, where, in fact, during that strike, they did actually strike a secret research facility a nuclear research facility. So Israel's doing a lot more than they're telling us. And he was saying, well, why doesn't Israel come out with satellite images of what it did? Why doesn't Israel tell us, exactly what it struck, so that we know that they're the world's leading air force? Well, because in the military, you don't go and share your secrets like that. They're going to keep some things close to their chest. They're not going to go and tell you every little thing that they did. You look at Stuxnet and these sorts of things. They want to be ambiguous on these things, so that no world leader or country is going to target them specifically. And B, they want to keep some things secret, so that they keep the Iranians guessing. They're not going to come out and tell you exactly what they've accomplished. And I guess I've always understood that, and so Canadian preppers should understand that as well, and not be so quick to poo-poo and make fun of Israel as a world-leading, technologically advanced air force and military, and not make fun of them for a strike where it looks like nothing happened. And that's what he came out saying. So I guess he's rolling back on that. But I think I say that because he's quick to say, here's when I called it, but he's slow to say, you know what, I didn't. I made a mistake. I made fun of Israel, and they actually did do a lot more damage than I thought. So, anyways, I'll say that because you need to take a grain of salt with everybody you're listening to. And some people are more bellicose, and they say things more for shock value in some cases. And people, if they say things strongly and loudly and with confidence, a lot of times, a lot of people listen to that. More so than those who say, well, I don't know exactly what's happening, but here's the data points. And that's a key thing to consider. And also the fact that he's not coming at it from a Bible point of view. So he's missing some details there about, who is the real strength behind Israel, for example, and who will back them in the last days. He's counting it all as Israeli strength and force, and he's discounting or never actually mentions the spiritual side of things. And that's a big deal. In these last days, there's going to be massive spiritual forces. We don't wrestle against flesh and blood, right? We wrestle against the spiritual forces in high places. And that's the overall battle. So if you're not seeing that, if you don't recognize that's out there, you're missing a large part of what is happening in the world. And so anyways, I belabored that point. Let's take a look at this. So this is jpost.com. Oh, by the way, IAF hit secret Iranian research facility during October operation. The strike dealt a severe blow to Iran's nuclear developments. So this is Israel's continued march to basically knock them back a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a couple of years in terms of the nuclear technology. They don't want Iran to get a deliverable nuclear warhead. And so Israel consistently goes in here and does these covert strikes. Now, I think it was in the 1980s that Israel went in and blew up the nuclear reactor in Iraq, Osirak, I think it was. But they may not do that now. They may not do an overt strike like that, because that would cause the whole world to come against them, I think. And in this day and age, you can do things covertly, not admit it. Neither country then wants to admit that, oops, they were their air defenses were overwhelmed or did not see what was coming, or oops, they could not defend against this. So neither country is going to say anything really about anything that's happening. And so if you can do it covertly, both countries really get away with a lot of stuff. And this is the new way that war is being waged, covertly. You're not going out and doing conventional strikes anymore and big shock and awe. You're going covertly and undermining a country's ability to do this or that, in this case with Iran, to build a nuclear warhead. So Israel is indeed doing that. And that strike wasn't useless, and it wasn't kind of a deadbeat strike. In fact, they did a lot of damage, and they did exactly what they were wanting to do. And you can't underestimate Israel. They are very technological. They very much so. They're working under their own strength right now. There will come a day when they call upon God, when they're overwhelmed, and God will show up and destroy their enemies. Right now, they're working under the strength and technological expertise and superiority of the IDF. But there will come a day when they are overwhelmed, i.e., Ezekiel 38. This is allisrael.com. New Israeli FM Foreign Minister Saar warns Iran is getting closer to the bomb. Military operation possible if necessary. So this is November 14th. I think they did the Parchin military exercise in October 25th, and they got a lot of things addressed there with that. But they still are not discounting a larger strike. And I think with Trump coming into office, Israel now really does have a lot of strength. And this article here, this is World Israel News, Trump promises to cancel all restrictions of arms shipments to Israel. So Biden was out there restricting arms, restricting Israel's kind of incoming military hardware, which would then limit them on an Iranian strike. And the Biden administration, wouldn't back a larger Iranian strike. Well, now with Trump, the focus is really going to be back on Israel, back on the Middle East, and this kind of focuses the prophetic eye, if you will, back on the Middle East and puts the pressure there. So it could very well be that Trump indeed induces or encourages Israel to do a larger strike on Iran, which or Iran's proxies, maybe even an increase in Israel stepping it up with Lebanon, and then going as far as destruction of Damascus, because of Iranian involvement, Iranian proxy there, which then becomes the hook in the jaw. So it's a prophetic uptick. It's a prophetic, I think, in terms of end times prophecy, it's kind of a reprieve. And I said this prior with the prior Trump administration. It's a bit of a reprieve locally for Christians in the United States, in Canada, in the West maybe, especially as Polyev looks to be a high potential for prime minister in Canada and being elected. So the pendulum is swinging to the right. So it's a bit of a reprieve for Christians, maybe a little bit less pressure where we are because we're maybe getting more conservative leaders in place. But on the prophetic across the rest of the world, it's an increase in the prophetic tempo. As things during Biden's administration were focused on Ukraine and Russia, things are going to be scaled back from there and going to be focused on the Middle East again. And prophecy is going to start marching ahead very, very quickly there, I believe. So I think that's where things stand right now with Trump. It's a prophetic, both a prophetic uptick and maybe a bit of a reprieve. But again, as you have, as you start following the Lord again, as things start moving in that direction for a Christian nation, I think you also see an uptick of evil and persecution and pressure from the devil to try and push back against a kind of a move towards God. And that's what happens in our personal lives too. I believe I'm experiencing that personally right now, where if you try and start doing things for the Lord, if you're doing things for the Lord, living for the Lord, that the devil comes back and he pushes back quite hard to kind of get you back in your place, kind of like a game of whack-a-mole. As a Christian pops his head up, the devil's going to come along and put roadblocks and slow him down and put trials and tribulations and persecutions, of the light sort. I'm not being persecuted, getting beaten up and being threatened with death, but just other things, relational things going on, where the devil's fighting back and he wants us to get back in our place, become complacent, kind of roll back any initiatives or any push forward with, reading the Bible with family or going to this Bible study, whatever it may be in your life. He's going to put pressure on you to giving you a reason to not do that, to not move along in your walk for Jesus Christ and in your personal relationship with him. And that's a spiritual battle that we're waging. And you have to understand and acknowledge that first. If your life is hard, if you feel oppression, maybe it's because you're standing out for the Lord, and you're doing things that the devil doesn't like. And on the world stage, again, you're going to see this oppression, this persecution, the great spiritual forces coming against. While good things are happening, there's going to be great spiritual forces against Trump, against other leaders that are moving their countries in conservative directions, and that's a way to tell if your leaders, if your country is moving in a good direction, if the spiritual interference and persecution increases, and that may come from riots and violence and these sorts of things from others. And I'm starting to hear it as well. Just the fact that society is breaking down all around us, to be honest, on a morning amateur radio net, just weird things are happening where there's more pranksters doing things, more violence, or more things trending towards hoodlums being around, causing more and more issues, and you see that in Brampton, in Ontario, with riots and fights between Pakistanis and Indians, and these cultural wars that are just kind of creeping into our culture because of the way we've gotten away from God, and culture and society is breaking down. So this is what I see today. It's a spiritual battle, and prophetic things I think will be ramping up as we get deeper into the Trump administration. The focus is going to be on Israel, Jerusalem, and the Middle East, and away from all these other wars that are kind of in and around the area. So stay tuned. Keep your eyes open. Things will get hard. Persecution will increase in the last days. We expect that. It's going to get scary. It's going to get a little bit crazy. So I'll leave there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.